A very good morning to all of you here at Marina Bay Sands. As Ravi said, this has been in the making for a long while. Today is a special day, not just for SIEW, but it marks the resumption of MICE events in Singapore. We are back in business. To all our guests joining us from overseas, a good day to all of you, be it morning, afternoon, or evening. Thank you very much for being part of this hybrid event. Different format, but same spirit. For SIEW to be a platform for collaboration and to generate ideas and solutions that will inspire the world and to provide a higher quality living for all of us. So thank you all for being here. For those of you who will join us, who were with us last year, you will remember that I shared the Singapore energy story. I said that if the last 50 years, water was our main challenge, in the next 50 years, energy will be our main challenge. We spoke about how we want to green our energy sources, the use of natural gas, renewables like solar, tapping into the regional power grid, and also looking for new low-carbon emission solutions. Today, I want to share another chapter, another page of our Singapore energy story. It is necessary for us to green our power sources, but it is not sufficient. We need to go a bit further than that. We need to look at how we consume energy and how we manage energy. Now, let's take a step back. It has been said that urban societies, if well-planned, well-organized, and well-executed, if they are well-planned, well-organized, and well-executed, urban societies can be the most energy and resource-efficient way to organize human societies. We think it is true. We believe in that. Which is why, while Singapore is known as the little red dot, we also aspire to be a bright green spark. A bright green spark where our living, our energy generation, our energy management system can be an inspiration to the urban societies across the world. And this is why today we invite you to join us on this journey. For us not only to green our consumption, green our production, but for us to be an inspiration to how urban societies can realize the vision of being the most resource and energy efficient way to organize human societies. To do that, we will need to live green, power green, and most importantly, make sure that we design our market structures to encourage green living and green behavior. Let me start with living green. We will have to review the way we consume, produce stuff for ourselves, and very importantly, we have to look at how we provide transport solutions for the next lap of our growth. Now, big changes starts with small steps. To achieve that high-quality lifestyle that we aspire, let's start with looking at consumption. One of the things that we will continue doing is to make sure that our urban design will able to incorporate the latest science, technology, and design methods for us to reduce the usage of resources, and very importantly, in a tropical climate like Singapore, to reduce the cooling need by leveraging on the natural ventilation that comes with our climate. Just as what I shared last year, if we can reduce the air conditioning needs, say in this hall, we will be able to reduce 1/3 of all the energy consumed for air cooling in this part of the world. So we will continue to refresh our design, incorporating the latest technology, like planning to use natural ventilation, using solar panels, smart lighting technologies, planting both vertical and horizontal greenery in order to reduce our energy consumption for our living spaces. When it comes to product choices, all of us as consumers also have a role to play. We can all choose products that are made with less wastage, materials that are recycled or sustainably sourced. In fact, this is a growing market for an environmentally more conscious population in Asia. So it is not just about slogan. There are real market opportunities for this. Such sustainable or more sustainable products will have certificates to assure buyers of the origin of the sources of materials that comes with it and the production methods. And this is a growing market that we will want to go into. We can also review the way we do our cooking and do our heating. If we can do more electrification for both cooking and heating, that will give us higher energy efficiency, allow us to control the emissions that comes with it, and yet at the same time reduce costs overall for everyone. Finally, on the consumption end, one of the very important things that we want to do in Singapore is to close up the consumption chain. And that is to make sure that nothing goes to waste. We have done that for water. Today, every drop of water that falls onto Singapore will be used at least twice before it gets evaporated. We recycle our water. We call it new water. Tomorrow, in fact, starting from today, we will be able to close the resource loop by making sure that we can convert more waste into reusable materials. It includes the construction materials that we use for our houses. It also includes the construction materials we use for our roads. In fact, we are working on converting plastics through pyrolysis oil, and we call that new oil, just as we call new water. Our aim is to maximize the amount of recycling of all the materials that we use in Singapore, that nothing much goes to waste, just as how we have done it for water over the last 50 years. And today, with technology, there's also new opportunities for us to relook at the way we produce stuff. There are two key technologies that we can leverage on. One has to do with digitalization. That increases the efficiency of what we can achieve with the same amount of resources that we used previously. The other is the advent of additive manufacturing, or what we call 3D printing. But it goes beyond 3D printing. Additive manufacturing, combines with data and digitalization, has the potential to revolutionize the way things are produced and the amount of resources that are required to do so. And this is the reason why the government of Singapore has continued to roll out various initiatives to support such processes. The government has rolled out various initiatives like the EDB's Resource Efficiency Grant for Energy to support industrial facilities in the manufacturing sector to be much more energy efficient. So with combination of digitalization and additive manufacturing, we think we can have a much more efficient, lower emission production system on the whole. Now let me move on to the third part about transport. And there are three aspects of transport which we will be reviewing in the coming years. How we move people, how we move logistics, and how we electrify our transport fleet. Incidentally, COVID-19 has opened up our eyes to new opportunities for people to meet and collaborate. Together with the data that we have now, for Singapore, as a small little island, we can review the entire Singapore's urban design, where we can minimize the need for people to move from place to place, be it for work or play, and yet at the same time increase the quality of interactions. Now that is the challenge. How do we make sure that we can do this by optimizing the entire transport system from public transport to last-mile private transport solutions? It is actually a mathematical problem. How do we optimize the movement of our people by time and space to make it much more energy efficient? Likewise, there's a great opportunity for us in the next 50 years to relook at how we design our entire logistics system, from where we place the distribution centers to the retail centers and so forth. Let's just do an exercise. Look at the bottle of water on our tables. Have you ever wondered, when this bottle of water enters our border, where has it traveled across the island? How long, how far before it finally reaches the hands of the final consumer? In many societies, urban societies, logistics is a huge challenge and a huge consumer of energy because of the transportation from point A to point B to point C and so forth. But for an island like Singapore, instead of having any piece of logistic zipping east and west, north and south across the island before it reaches the hands of the final consumer, is there a better way for us to organize this such that it travels the shortest distance in a time band that is least congested to minimize the amount of congestion it causes to our roads and thereby reducing the energy consumption and reducing the emission possible? We think this is entirely possible as we relook at how we lay out our entire logistics system from warehouses to retail stores in the next 50 years. And if any country, any city can do that, Singapore must be one of them. So in the next lab, we have already said that we intend to phase out the internal combustion engine by 2040. For every internal combustion engine that we phased out and we convert it into an electric vehicle, we can potentially reduce the emission by 50%. Now that is a huge boost to our efforts to provide a cleaner environment, a higher quality environment for our people. But beyond electrification of our transport fleet, today we are already in consultation with partners to look at the next lap of electrification for the aviation and the maritime fleet. No doubt, these are still nascent ideas, but these also have potential to revolutionize the way we transport people and goods around the world within a city with much greater efficiency and much lower emission. So this is what we aspire to do. And that's the first part about living green. If I may, I'll move to the second part of how we intend to power green. To power green, we will have to relook at the way we produce energy, the way we store energy, and the way we have our energy mix. So let's start with our energy mix. Today, Singapore has one of the cleanest ways to produce energy from fossil fuels. 95% of all our energy production comes from the burning of LNG. This is a high watermark, but I think we can do better. Hydrogen has tremendous potential, as yet another clean form of energy, if not cleaner form of energy. We'll be working to see how we can combine the use of hydrogen with our existing LNG mix for us to have an even cleaner energy mix for Singapore. And that's why the government has set aside $50 million to fund low-carbon energy research and test bedding in hydrogen, carbon capture, utilization, and storage solutions. So we look forward to working closely with the research institutes to bring this about. And this morning, I just signed an MOU with Australia to explore partnerships and opportunities beyond our shores, to see how we can drive low-carbon emission solutions, including hydrogen, carbon capture, utilization, and storage solutions, and renewable energy trade. This is a new way for us to look at our energy mix in its totality afresh. Solar power is probably the most plausible way for us to have a greater proportion of our energy mix from renewable sources. And this is why, from last year's target, we are going to bring forward, we're going to front load our production of solar. And we aspire to have the public service sector to take this lead. That we will bring forward to try to achieve 1.5 gigawatt peak by the year 2025. Last year, we announced the target for 2030. This year, we want to front load it, notwithstanding COVID, by bringing forward the deployment of solar, and we will catalyze this through the public sector initiatives. Now, with greater reliance on renewable energy sources, some other challenges will arise. We have to fix the intermittency problem, and storage will be one key issue that we have to resolve. This is why today we're happy to announce that EMA and Keppel Offshore and Marine have jointly awarded a research grant to a consortium led by Envision Digital and energy storage system. This will see the deployment of Singapore's first stacked energy storage on Keppel's floating living lab. If this is successful, it can potentially save 40% of the land take for a typical energy storage solution. With more solar, we will also have a more decentralized grid. It will be quite different from the previous and existing grid, where we have producers pumping electrons to the users. Instead, in the next generation, we can see and envision a situation where consumers can also, at certain points in time, be producers of energy that feeds back the electrons into the decentralized grid. Now, to run this decentralized grid and to balance it in real time, we will need new technologies. The good news is, today, we have such technologies in digital, and if we can leverage on this, work closely with our research community, we will be able to have a new grid architecture for Singapore in the next 50 years that moves away from the centralized grid to a decentralized grid with dynamic load balancing throughout the day, throughout the weeks. So these are exciting opportunities for all of us. In the area of production, we will continue to push forward to make sure that our combined cycle generating the turbine, the gas turbine, the combined cycle gas turbine, or what we call the CCGT, will become more efficient, adopting the latest generation of technologies. But we know the challenge. We understand the challenge. To invest in huge CCGT requires huge investment. And this is why Singapore is interested to see how we can complement this with another generation of smaller and more efficient genset to help to balance this demand instead of having this lumpy investment necessary. And we hope that more companies will adopt such complementary solutions over and above the existing huge CCGTs that we are using. If we can do so, combined with digitalization, we will again have a brand new way of organizing our energy production. Because there is great uncertainty in the next lap of energy demand. And this has nothing to do with just COVID. Some of the key drivers of our energy demand for the next lap will include the data centers, the electrification of our transport fleet, over and above today's demand by the petrochemical plants, the semiconductor plants, and other industrial players as well. So while there's great uncertainties over the next lap of energy demand, we need to have more agile, more flexible solutions in the generation of energy, combined with the decentralized grid that we talk about. So this is really new and exciting opportunities for us going forward. Now let me move on to the third part of our plan, and that is to develop green market structures. And let's take a step back and understand why we are doing this. While we would like to continue to encourage and cajole more players to use more energy-efficient solutions, moral suasion can only go that far. We will need to make sure that we have the right market structures, right incentives to drive the right behavior in a sustainable way over the long term. But today we know, for any energy-producing plant, we face what in economics we call it the hog cycle or the cattle cycle, which is that there tend to be a feast and famine problem in the sector. When times are good, many rush in to invest, exacerbating the overcapacity for the next lap. When times are not so good, people withdraw their investments and accentuate the problems of shortage for the next lap again. This is what in economics they call it the cattle cycle or the hog cycle, a feast and famine strategy. And we must find ways to overcome this in order for us to build a reliable and sustainable energy producing system. And these are the few ways that we intend to do this. First, EMA will introduce a forward capacity market in the coming year. This will provide greater certainties to all our producers of the demand in the next few years. And we will provide more details of this forward capacity market and how it will help to provide greater certainty for players to plant their capacity in Singapore with greater certainty of the demand required. So that's the first thing that we'll do. The second thing that we will do is to see how we can strengthen the regional grid architecture. We will kick this off by importing 100 megawatts of electricity imports for a trial period of 2 years to see how the market works, to see how the technical challenges can be overcome. This will allow the region to share the clean energy sources that different countries may have. And we'll start this with Malaysia. Once the concept takes off, we'll be able to extend this to other regional players. And we will also be part of the Laos PDR, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore Power Integration Project, or what they call the LTMS PIP. This will be a pathfinder towards the broader ASEAN power grid system. And it underlies our commitment to advance regional power grids as a solution to decarbonization in the region. Last but not least, very importantly, we must make sure that we have the right carbon pricing. Today, we have a carbon tax currently set at $5 per ton of greenhouse gas emission. But having a local price mechanism is necessary but not sufficient. More importantly, the carbon price, there must be a global carbon price for it to be a fair playing field for everyone and for us to catalyze action at the global level. And this is why Singapore fully supports the multilateral efforts under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change to land a global deal on carbon markets. And we would like to work with like-minded countries and like-minded partners to build a carbon trading market in Singapore. We invite all interested partners, local and overseas, to work with us to develop this market where we are able to trade with high-quality standards, verifiable standards that will provide assurance to both buyers and sellers. So in conclusion, today we share the next page of our Singapore energy story. We have every intention to green our consumption by living green, to green our production by making sure that our grid is more efficient, and we want to work with like-minded partners to catalyze the global market for more sustainable solutions. Now, at this point in time, you might ask me, are all these plans still valid in a COVID pandemic? Today is a testimony of our confidence and effort. We, in Singapore, we are not going to wait for the COVID to pass by and return to the good old days. We have told ourselves that even when COVID pass by and move on, we will never go back to a pre-COVID world. And instead of waiting, we are going to start today. Learning to live in a COVID world, investing in the long term for both a COVID and a post-COVID world. The plans that we announce today will not be realized in the next 1-2 years. The plans that we have laid out today will also not be just for the next 1-2 years. Instead, we have a long-term vision, just as what I mentioned last year. If the last 50 years, we have overcome our water challenge, the next 50 years, we are determined to overcome our energy challenge. And bit by bit, we will put in all the building blocks necessary to make sure that Singapore will be a bright green spark, where our solutions, our ideas, our collaborations can be an inspiration for the world to realize this simple vision, that if it is well executed, well planned, well organized, the urban society, even for a country like Singapore without a natural hinterland, the urban society can be the most energy and resource efficient way to organize human society, providing the highest quality of life possible for the same amount of resources consumed. So ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for being here. We invite you to be part of this Singapore energy story so that together we can inspire new solutions for the next lap of global growth. Thank you very much, and may you enjoy a good week ahead.